morning, students. Today we are going to talk about a new topic that is arrays, and I'm going to give you the introduction for this topic today. An array, as mentioned on the screen, is a collection of data items or values of the same data type that are referred by a common name. Now, before I start explaining this, you should be knowing that array is another form of identifier only. Like it is a named memory location, like we had variables. The basic difference between a variable and an array is that a variable can store only one value at a time, whereas array can store multiple values. But what you need to take care is that it can hold only the multiple values of the same data type. What does that mean? If we have values of different data types, we cannot store them all together in a single array. So an array creates a continuous memory location depending upon the array size given within the square brackets. Array is always represented by a square bracket that we are going to see in the next screen. The index number always starts with 0 and the last index is 1 less than the size of the array. Let's talk further about it. Uh, the advantage of an array, before we start talking about the index number, is that an array can store a huge amount of values of the same type under one name, and hence we do not require a number of different variables for the same. For example, if I have to store the marks of 20 students of a class, then I am going to require 20 different variable names to store those marks. Now this will be a problem to remember so many variable names, and it will be difficult to handle them also. So that can be simplified by making use of an array of integer type to store the values. So under one name, I am going to store all the values. Now array is going to access those values using index numbers. The value stored in an array at specific location is actually called the element of that array. Like variables, array has to be declared before we use it. So how to declare an array? The syntax of declaring an array is there on the screen. We have to mention the data type for the array, followed by a particular name, an appropriate name of the array. Like we have a variable name, similarly we will mention an array name, and this will be followed by a square bracket. An example, int marks as the name of the array, followed by the square bracket and then a semicolon. We need to allocate memory to the array because array can store multiple values, but how many values in it will be decided by the memory allocated to the array. So how to allocate the memory? Let's see. We are going to declare the array and then it will be equal to, we are going to make use of the keyword new. After new, we are going to mention the same data type with which we have declared the array, followed by the size of the array or the number of elements in the array within the square bracket. See the example on the screen. We have int marks square bracket equal to new int within square bracket I have written 10 and a semicolon. That means in the array marks the maximum number of elements can be 10. Remember, we can store less number of elements in this array, but the maximum number of elements can only be 10. We cannot go beyond this number. That means the maximum number is 10. We cannot store 11 elements in this array. When we talk about the types of an array, we have one-dimensional array and a double-dimensional array or a two-dimensional array. As far as your syllabus goes, we only have to discuss the one-dimensional array. Now the elements in a one-dimensional array are specified by a single subscript. Now what is this subscript? The value which is written within the square bracket. Any element in the array can be accessed by writing the array name followed by its index number within the square brackets. So like I said, every element in the array can be accessed by the index number for it. The index number ranges from 0 to the total number of elements minus 1. So here as an example, marks 1 is equal to 25. That means at index number 1, the value stored in the array marks is 25. How to initialize the array? We have already seen how to declare an array. Now we are going to talk about how to initialize values to the array. We can do it as one element at a time. by making use of the assignment operator. What we have to do, we can write marks within square bracket 0 is equal to 78. That means at the index number 0, the value stored is 78. Similarly, at the index number 1, it is 88, and at the index number of 2, it is 53. And so on we can do it. But it will work fine until the array needs to contain very large amount of data. That means if a large number of values are to be stored, this method will not be very good in applying. So let's see what the other topic is. Now we are going to talk about the unsized array. Now before this slide you have seen that we are going to allocate the memory to the array. If we don't do it, then it will be called as an unsized array. The array having empty square bracket is known as an unsized array. In this case, the size of the array is automatically created depending upon the number of elements present in the array. What does that mean? Let us see an example. See, what I am doing here is I am initializing during declaration. Now in this example, if you see, I have taken a data type as double. The name of the array is temperature followed by an empty square bracket. That means it is an unsized array. But I am initializing it as within curly braces 13.5, 18.4, 19.6, 21.4. Now what will happen, automatically this array temperature will be allocated the size 4. That means the maximum number of elements that can be there in the array is 4. How to initialize it one by one? Like we have discussed it earlier, we can use the index number to initialize the value one by one. Temperature within square bracket 0 is equal to 13.5 and so on. So that can be done. So actually when we initialize it as an unsized array, the values are stored in this manner. So on this slide, we are talking about declaring the arrays of different data types. So see the example. In the first example, I am taking an integer type of array wherein I am storing all the values within the curly braces. Similarly, in the second example, I have a double data type array. In the third example, I have a string data type array. See, each value of string will be within double quotes. And in the next example, I have a character type of array where each value is within a single quote. You need to note that every element in an array of any data type is separated by a comma. So you need to understand that. Let's see how it happens in the memory of the computer. If we initialize an integer of 5 elements, let's say, like I have taken an example of integer data type, we have an array B and the values are initialized to it. Then in the memory, there will be 5 different memory blocks which will be in continuation, and each block will be represented by the index number. So if you see the diagram, I have made the blocks that are continuous. The first block is numbered as 0, then 1, then 2 till 4. That's why I said the index number goes from 0 to the total size minus 1. In total there are 5 elements, but the allocation starts from the index number 0. So in this diagram, I have told you how at specific index number the values are stored. We can access the array elements using the loop. How to do it? Let us see with this example. Here I am declaring an array of integer data type to accept marks of 55 students. So I made use of the scanner class here by creating an object of it, and then I am taking a variable, array variable, which is also called as subscripted variable at times, as student, and the size allocated is 55. So this is how it is done. We are going to ask the user to enter the marks. Using a loop we are going to do it. So I have used a for loop. So the variable used here, the loop variable is I. So it will start from 0, it will go till 54. That's why the condition used is I less than 55. So what will happen? Inside the loop, I am going to accept the value from the user one by one. So student within square bracket I is equal to sc.nextInt. NextInt is the method of the scanner class to accept the integer value. What will happen in the first iteration of the loop? The index number will be 0 because the value of I is 0. So at index number 0, whatever value is entered by the user will be stored. Similarly, in the next iteration, at index number 1, the value will be stored, and so on. So in total, we will have 55 different values. We can accept the elements as string values also. We were generally using this syntax since we have started writing Java programs from class 8. So public static void main, within the parentheses we used to write string args. So what that meant? That meant that the string type of values can be accepted during the execution of the program. There we were not entering any value, we were simply pressing enter. By default the space was taken as the input. Now how to take the string type of values? Here I am going to enter the names as the input. So in the message call box, the method call box that appears, we are going to enter the values as this, because string values are always within double quotes. So these three values I have entered separated by comma. Now whatever number of values you are going to enter like this, they all will be stored where? In the array name. Then we are going to talk about the length of an array. What does that mean? Length of an array means the size of the array. That means the total number of elements in it. How to find it? We have a method called length. So how to use it? We are going to write the array name, then a dot symbol, and then length. So length is a function of the method applicable for arrays. With the help of length method, we can obtain the size of the array. To find the count of elements of an array, we can use array name followed by dot and then the length. Let us see a very simple example for the same. I have taken a class and then in it I have declared a method main. I am declaring an array within the main method of integer type, and I am initializing the values to it. Now what I am writing system.out.println, the elements of the array are. That means I am going to display the elements of the array. Using the loop I am doing it. The loop goes from I equal to 0, I is less than m dot length. Now m dot length is automatically going to find the total number of elements in it. So the total number of elements, if I count them, are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the loop is going to run from 0 to 7. In total, from 0 to 7, there will be 8 values. And I am going to display the values one by one using the print statement. How to do it? I am writing system.out.print within parenthesis m within square bracket I followed by a space. So this is how it is going to be displayed. So see the output. In the output, the elements in the array are, and all the elements are displayed. So this is how we are going to work with arrays in Java. I believe you are able to understand what I have told you today. Let me do a short recap of it. Array is very similar to variable. The only difference is that in a simple variable we can store a single value, whereas in array we can store multiple values, keeping in mind that all the values should be of the same data type. So it can be done. We can store multiple values of the same data type under one name. Array can also be called as a subscripted variable because array name is always followed by a square bracket where we actually give the index number. What are index number? Index numbers are actually used to access or to work with the values or the elements stored in the array. So please go through this video properly and try to understand what I made you understand, and go through the chapter from the book. It is just an introduction. In the next class we are going to talk about certain examples related to it. That means the actual programs. Take care class and go through it properly. Thank you so much.